Speak Your Mind Radio is an internet radio community on D-Live, broadcasting abducted child alerts, missing person cases, and bringing breaking and top news to you affecting our world, along with music and talk radio.
Thanks for listening.
This webcaster uses Radio Amber, the Internet Radio Amber Alert System, helping to keep your children safe. A public service from the Internet broadcasting community and this station.
Hey, hello, and good afternoon. We have some breaking news that just broke a little bit ago. It's in Windsor, Georgia. An active shooter's situation had unfolded at Apprehended High School. The first responders were dispatched to the scene at 10:23 a.m. following reports of gunfire. The school was immediately placed on hard lockdown. There are multiple victims, but the severity of their injuries has not been disclosed. Disturbing images from the scene show at least one medical helicopter airlifting a patient to a nearby hospital. A suspect is in custody, but no details have been released regarding the suspect's identity or potential motive for the shooting. CNN reports that a local hospital has received patients suffering from gunshot wounds. Through their conditions are unknown at this time. The FBI and Georgia Bureau of Investigations are now on the ground assisting local law enforcement with the ongoing investigation. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the situation. More updates will follow as information becomes available. So we're going to go ahead and we have a little bit of stuff here that I can give to you. First, ABC is reporting on this. And just give me a minute and we'll get that going.
After a mass shooting at Apprehended High School in Winder, Georgia. Right now, police say one suspect is in custody. They believe this situation is now over, but multiple people are now being treated at area hospitals there again after a shooting there in the high school. I want to bring in our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katursky, for the latest here. Aaron, what are you learning about this shooting so far?
This occurred at the high school in Winder, Georgia, about an hour north of Atlanta. We're told there are casualties, although the exact number and their conditions have not been made clear to us, Diane. One of the local hospitals we've been in touch with says they're treating at least one gunshot victim, so it does appear that at least one person was shot at this high school. And you can see from the images there on your screen, there are people gathered outside. The school had been put on lockdown. There were a number of emergency vehicles seen racing to the scene, perhaps ambulances, helicopters as well. So it's still active, although, as you say, the sheriff in Barrow County, Georgia, confirms that one suspect is now in custody. Yeah, to your point, Aaron, maybe too early for me to call it a mass shooting, but multiple casualties after a shooting at that school. I want to bring in a former FBI agent, Brad Garrett, for more on that. Brad, what does this tell you now about where this investigation goes to have authorities reporting multiple casualties and a suspect now in custody after a shooting at this high school?
Well, they have a lot more information to work with. It sounds very clear to me that the shooter did get inside the school. We didn't know that earlier. And so there's going to be multiple witnesses. If the kid is a student or former student, the students may know who he is. So getting to motive and is there any other thing connected, events connected to this event? In other words, are there explosives someplace? Is he, the shooter, connected to anybody? Was there more than one person involved? That's usually not the case, but you just don't know till you check it out. So you have to cover all your bases here. You make the school safe, and you make sure the community is safe based on what you learn about the shooter.
Steve Madden, never miss a beat.
Genshin Impact's new area, Natland, is now available. Download now.
He also explained that he had to leave all of his stuff behind. So all of his possessions are back there on campus. There's this scramble for parents to reunite with their kids. What are you seeing?
Hello, Errol. Hello, Lana. It is really difficult for parents to get to this scene because the entire area is locked down, and not only that, but they also have cars. Sorry, there was someone walking by. They also have cars that are packed up all over the street, and it's hard to get by those cars. So we did talk to a woman who came running because her neighbor's son was in there. He's in 12th grade, and his mother couldn't get here. She is an hour away in the Atlanta area, so she came running. She said she had to run for 2.5 miles through all those cars to get here, but that's what a lot of parents are doing. They are just abandoning their cars by the side of the street and running in here. The FBI has arrived on scene just a few minutes ago. We did see lots of school buses arrive. Those students were staged out behind me on the football field while they were assessing the situation inside.
Dave, I'm not sure if we still have you. Did we lose you, Dave?
Can you hear me still?
Yes, we got you back. Please continue.
Okay, so there's, I was saying there's multiple law enforcement agencies here, all the way from the FBI to the GBI to Sheriff's Department, and also local law enforcement from all over that are trying to assess the situation. We have a State Patrol car going behind us right now. We have seen at least 2 medevac helicopters come from this school. CBS News has confirmed that there are 2 people who were killed in this shooting. My colleague Mark Strassman just talked to a student who had gone through this drill over and over again. In Georgia, I have kids in Georgia schools in APS, and they go through these drills as young as elementary school. And at the very beginning of this situation, they thought it was a drill, but the teachers told them that this is actually the real thing, and they were really panicked the way that you could imagine that students would be. They tried to call out to their parents. Some students were able to get a phone call out to their parents and have anybody come here and actually put eyes on them, give them a hug, tell them that everything's all right. But right now,
Dave, unfortunately, it seems like your microphone continues to go out. If you have us back, when we were hearing from you before, we were hearing that some school buses were leaving. Do you know anything more about efforts to reunite families, parents with their children? Are there still a lot of children, or sorry, they're high schoolers? Are there still a lot of high schoolers that are there on the football field waiting to go home at this point, or have they mostly dissipated?
Lana, those reunions are happening right now. They are able to one by one have the students come out of that lockdown area in the back of the high school at the football field, have them come up and reunite with their parents, who are both in tears and both very emotional about what happened today. It happened about 9:30, and some of the students actually thought this was a drill, but it was the real thing. And we do have parents reuniting with their kids. 2 school buses. I see another one coming down here. Not sure if anybody's on there, but the 2 school buses did come through here empty, waiting to pick up kids. And as we see, if we just hang on here for a second, we can see if there is anybody on this school bus that's coming through. It doesn't appear that any students the way that they would be able to take some of the kids back from this tragic situation back to a place that they call home, that they can feel safe and feel that they are in some sort of reunion with their families, with something that is safe and normal and comfortable for them after this day, which is a day they prepare for, but a day they hoped would never come. But unfortunately, here at Apprehended High School, it came for them at 9:30 a.m. this morning.
So unnerving for so many people. Dave Markoff, thank you very much.
As promised, we are bringing you Vice President Harris, who's speaking at a campaign event in New Hampshire. We expect her to address that school shooting that took place earlier today in Winder, Georgia. Let's go ahead and give a listen to what the Vice President has to say.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. 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 It's so good to be back in New Hampshire. Thank you all. Thank you. And Doug sends his love to everyone as well. Oh, thank you, everyone. Nicole, thank you. You guys are just so extraordinary, and I applaud the way you do the business that you do and the love that you do in giving community. I love our small business owners. It is what you do. I'm going to talk a bit about you in a minute, but you are part of the fabric, the essential fabric of a community that cares about one another. Thank you for everything. And thank you to the outstanding congressional delegation, Senators Shaheen, Hassan, Representatives Pappas and Custer, and all the leaders who are here today. Thank you all. Thank you all for taking the time to be here this afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So before I begin, I do want to say a few words about this tragic shooting that took place this morning in Winder, Georgia. We're still gathering information about what happened, but we know that there were multiple fatalities and injuries. And, you know, our hearts are with all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course. And we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all. You know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. So we will continue, of course, to send our prayers and our thoughts to the families and all those who were affected, including, you know, I'm going off script right now, but listen, I mean, you know, at the last year, I started a college tour. And I for them at 9:30 a.m. this morning.
So unnerving for so many people. Dave Markoff, thank you very much.
As promised.
Stand by for our CBS News reporter Jared Eggleston is there. Jared, tell us what you're seeing and what's happening.
Errol, good afternoon. As you might imagine, it is a very chaotic scene out here right now. I've been out here for about 10 minutes, and it is just families and parents and friends trying to find answers. This is the school right in front of it right here. We saw last news to you affecting our world. Helicopters land here at the school, so that shows that it's still a very active scene out here right now. As I was coming over here, there were agencies from all over Metro Atlanta rushing to this scene as they try to figure out just what happened. Now, in addition to the authorities trying to find out what happened, so are those families, as you guys were just talking about. I've talked to several of the parents out here who are just waiting to hear from their kids and waiting to be reunited with their loved ones. And as you know, during these chaotic situations, sometimes it takes time, and that time for these families is definitely feels like hours, I'm sure.
Are you learning anything more about what transpired there on the scene? It looks like maybe we
trying to learn just what exactly. Are you there?
Yes, Jared, please, quickly. We have about 30 seconds.
Yes. Yeah, so the scene is still very chaotic. Governor Kemp, the governor of Georgia here, has said that he is directing all agencies to find out just what exactly happened here. The school district confirming that an event did happen here, but no exact details yet. We expect to learn those very soon, and of course, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, Jared, we want you to stay safe as you speak with anxious parents there and, of course, disturbed students who had been unnerved by this. Our viewers are now looking at a statement from Georgia's governor, effectively saying he is making all available resources available to cover this incident on what we understand to be a potential shooting at a high school there in Georgia this morning, with the FBI responding, potential casualties, and a suspect in custody. You're in the right place for all the information on this. Stay with us here at CBS News 24/7 as we now prepare for a special report with more of the latest information. But you're looking at the sheriff vehicle, EMTs aiding potentially injured students, faculty, or staff. And it appears it has happened once again here in the U.S.
Yes, and we continue to bring you the very scant details that we have as we have it. This is Apprehended High School in Georgia. It's about an hour northeast of Atlanta. We know that the school there has evacuated all of the students to the football field. Those students are now being reunited with their family members. All the other area schools are on soft lockdown in the district right now. Parents are being urged not to come to try and collect their students at this time. As you can imagine, there are lots of logistics that law enforcement and school officials are trying to sort through to make sure that everyone stays safe. As we learn the details about what exactly transpired there, any number of casualties, we will continue to bring you the updated facts. We do have Jared on the ground there. Jared, are you still with us? All
Kathy
right.
Guider, I understand, is still with us. Kathy, you were mentioning how experiencing something like this can be unnerving for students, perhaps panic attacks, perhaps, you know, a reaction filled with anxiety. What are some of your concerns as we watch this unfold?
Right. I'm, worried about those students. As a mother, as a, retired law enforcement, my thought is, keep people safe, get them away from the situation. I'm positive that the school will provide counseling, maybe today, tomorrow, definitely all this week, for those students. You want to give them some peace of mind in the situation, and obviously they can see all the law enforcement that is on site. They can see the ambulances, they know people are coming to assist and to help them. And that's what you want them to know, is that, the adults have it from here.
And as one of those adults who, as a former FBI special agent, you would investigate these types of incidences. What is happening? Tell us a little bit more about what would be happening on the ground, because we do know that there are FBI agents there that are coordinated along with local law enforcement, the school district. The governor has okayed all resources as necessary. As we're trying to piece together this puzzle, what does the investigation look like at this point?
So right now, you will have agents on site who are working with the other law enforcement, the local law enforcement, the state law enforcement. They're trying to gather as much intelligence as they can on the shooter, on the victim, in the school and in the situation that's at hand. So you've got people on site working, very quickly to get the information. But you also have those agents relaying that information to intelligence analysts back in the office, and those intelligence analysts are doing, their speediest work and their best work.
And Kathy, sorry to interrupt, but on that point that you've just made, I want to share with our viewers that we do have a statement just released from the White House, and it says President Biden has been briefed by his Homeland Security advisor on this tragic shooting, as they describe it, at Apprehended High School. His administration, the statement goes on to say, will continue with coordinating with federal, state, and local officials as they get more information. So as the folks on the scene are sharing intelligence with the field office, what difference does it make that the president is watching and that he is saying he will coordinate and make sure all resources are available as well?
That's helpful in the fact that the various agencies then know we're all working together. We are going to use all our resources. It's not just one agency having to fund this or supply the people, that all people are going to be working together. So they're going to continue the work they're doing, because right now they're just trying to gather the information, get it to the intelligence analysts who will do the deep dives and the digging, online, through email accounts, through social media accounts. So a lot of work is being done by a lot of people on site and off site.
Kathy, thank you for that.
We want to bring in now former Bergen County, New Jersey police chief and lecturer at John Jay College, Brian Higgins. Brian, as a former police chief, how does a department respond to a type of incident like this?
Well, what we've seen unfold is exactly what we would expect: a massive police response to move as quickly as possible to the scene and into the school. First to stop the shooting, and then to render aid to victim as quickly as possible. And that appears to be happening as we watch this.
It's so disturbing to watch, Brian, because we've all been here before. And if you are a high school age person, you've only lived a life where there is a constant threat of school shootings. The suspect is in custody, though. And we don't always...
Well, a suspect is in custody.
At least one suspect, we should say, in custody. That will provide some intelligence and some information on what is still an early investigation. How helpful is that? And how will they be speaking with this at least one suspect now in order to make sure everyone is safe?
It's extremely helpful on two fronts. First, in the investigation into the school shooting itself, how this unfolded, how the shooter or shooters came to be in possession of these firearms, what motivated them to perpetrate this shooting. And then on a larger scale, every time we have a school shooting or a mass shooting like this, we're moving closer to that point where someday we can see these things start to go in the opposite direction, reduce the numbers, and ultimately there will be a day when we won't see these school shootings. You know, you make a very good point about we're here again. I am a father of a teenager who will start high school tomorrow, his second year, and this is the kind of thing that is in the back of every parent's mind.
What do you tell your kid?
Well, first of all, I tell him how he should react during one of these situations, and I tell him even if it's an exercise, a practice run, or a lockdown, if he's not in a classroom, he's not with an adult like a teacher, that he should get out of the scene as quickly as possible. And we'll worry about any ramifications later on. So that's the number one thing I tell my student, my son, is be aware of your surroundings and then be ready to get away as quickly as possible.
So that's interesting. You actually have had this conversation with your son. You are an expert in this area, and you have an agreement that, in a way, supersedes what the school tells the student at that time, because in your view, it's more important for the student to get away from the unsafe situation.
Yeah, it's more on filling in the blanks. You know, if he's with a teacher, he's in a classroom, their procedures are good. I know his school, I know his school security program, but there are those little gap areas, those gray areas, like if he's in a hallway, if he's going to the bathroom, if he's not around teachers. So I just kind of fill in the areas, but it's many of these schools have good protocols, have good security programs, they have relationship with local police, and it's good for the students to follow those. But I want him to also think on his own.
It's a really interesting point, and parents all have to make these decisions for themselves. We now want to get to our local affiliate coverage there from WANF to see what new information they may be uncovering.
Lawrenceville Police Department cars making their way down towards Apprehended High School.
Chelsea, these cars that we see, the law enforcement vehicles, are they heading to the school or away from the school?
The ones that you just saw zooming past us are actually heading away from the school. So, you know, unclear where those are going, but we are being told that one suspect is in custody. So, of course, they have a lot more investigating to do here as well, trying to figure out what the motive was behind this and what led up to the shooting.
We should mention, when you see the word, and we have the word casualties on the screen right now, when police talk about casualties, that could mean that someone has been killed or injured.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the person, the casualty, is dead. It could be someone who has been killed or injured. And so the number of casualties at this point, we don't know. We have not gotten that information, but we have seen so many ambulances. Adam was talking about 6 to 8 ambulances that he had witnessed himself, just sort of, speeding away from the scene. We also did witness someone put it into a helicopter and choppered to Grady Memorial Hospital. This is video, not live, but video of one of those airvacs, the one that has a patient in it that left the scene. This is probably about an hour or so ago that this took place. And so the original calls, just to catch you up here at 12:40 on this Wednesday afternoon, the original calls came in just after 10:20 this morning. Reports of gunfire at Apalachee High School. Police then responded to those calls, and we've gotten this statement from the Barrow County Sheriff's Department as we take a look at these live pictures of parents walking to the campus of Apalachee High School to be reunited. They're praying with their children. That at approximately 10:23, officers from multiple law enforcement agencies and fire EMS personnel were dispatched to the high school in reference to a reported active shooting. One suspect is in custody and casualties have been reported. Details on the number or their conditions is not available at this time. And again, this is video. These are not live pictures. This is video that we've been gathering over the last 90 minutes or so since we first went on the air with this, showing you the scene, which at various times has been active or I don't want to say inactive, because obviously there's a lot going on there. Right. But we've seen a lot of law enforcement sort of walking around without the sense of urgency that you would expect if there was an active shooter still at large. And when we say that there's one person in custody, we don't know whether or not there are any other suspects that they're looking for.
All right, that was coverage from our local station WANF on what we believe to be a school shooting in Winder, Georgia, at Apalachee High School. There, the police say that there is a suspect in custody, and casualties, whether those are fatalities or not, we do not know, have been reported.
A CBS News special report begins right now.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in New York, and we are coming on the air with breaking news with another school shooting. This time about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta in Barrow County, Georgia. Now, the local sheriff's department said a suspect is in custody and there are reports of casualties. Police say the alleged shooting occurred at about 10:23 a.m. at Apalachee High School, which has about 1,900 students, so it is a big high school. Parents, we're told, are now allowed to go to the campus and pick up their students. Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp issued a statement saying he has directed all available state resources to respond to the incident. The FBI's Atlanta office said it has agents on the scene to help coordinate and support local law enforcement efforts. CBS's Jared Eggleston is on the scene in Georgia, and he joins us now with the very latest. Jared, tell us what you see. What happened this morning?
Nora, good afternoon. Out here on the scene right now, it's still very active, a very chaotic scene. Within the last few minutes, even another life flight helicopter landed here on the property of the school that you can see just over my shoulder. Now, parents here on the scene, they swarmed here. As I got here, there were cars in about every mile, about a mile radius around the school, with parents just leaving their cars on the side of the road so that they could rush to the school to be reunified with their students. Now, I've been talking with some of the parents as I've been out here over the last half hour or so, and a lot of them are just anxiously awaiting the return of their students. And as you mentioned, Nora, the school is working on reunifying the students and their families right now.
Jared, can you describe how many ambulances were on the scene? How many of those life flight helicopters have you seen?
I've seen at least two circling the school since I got here. And like I said, one of them actually landed. I would say at least 30 to 50 ambulances are here on the scene. They're still here on the scene right now. Some of them have started to leave even just as we've been talking, Nora. But there's a lot of ambulances here and a lot of police responses as well. As I was coming here, there's one highway that will get you to the school. It was constantly more first responders, more ambulances, more police coming to the school to assist with that response.
And Jared, describe the area for us.
This is a rural area outside of Atlanta. If you're familiar with Georgia, it is in between Atlanta and Athens, where the University of Georgia is. This is one of a growing community around Atlanta, one of the bigger areas where a lot of people are moving out in the suburbs. So it is rural, but it is still very big suburb of Atlanta. And as you said, Nora, this is also one of the bigger high schools in the county.
How long have parents been able to come and pick up their students? When did the lockdown end?
The lockdown ended about, I would say, half hour, 45 minutes ago. Right when I got on the scene was when the school district actually made a release saying that an incident did happen here at this school and that parents would then be able to be reunified with their students. And as I've been standing here, the police keep directing the families towards that scene where they want everyone to kind of meet that reunification point. But a lot of people, as you know, Nora, are just so nervous about what has happened here right now. So that has led to some of the chaos that we're still seeing here on the scene.
CBS's Jared Eggleston on the scene, this developing situation. Just to repeat, one suspect in custody at this hour. There are casualties, and as Jared described, dozens, in his words, of ambulances were on the scene, including those helicopters, to help with some of those casualties. Want to bring in now our CBS News law enforcement expert, Rodney Harrison. He is a former police commissioner from the New York City area. And Rodney, now that this suspect is in custody, what are the next steps for law enforcement?
Yeah, so we have to take a closer look at our subject and identify, is he a lone wolf? Is he involved with somebody else? Was he put up to this? Also, we have to take a look at the other local schools and make sure that those schools are evacuated as well. So we have to find out what was the motive, what caused this individual to be involved with this active shooter and do such a horrible incident, but also make sure that the surrounding schools are safe going forward. And that's important regarding getting kids out of the schools, evacuating those schools, and getting them home safely to their families.
Mm-hmm. And Rodney, this has become all too common in America, these school shootings. What is the profile of a school shooter like this?
You know, it's unfortunate that these school shooters come in different forms and fashion and different sizes and different shapes. Listen, you know, it could be anything from someone being bullied at school to somebody that just wants to use this as a platform to get a message across. So there is no cookie cutter way of looking at anybody that does this act of violence. But I will say this is important, that all local law enforcement work with their local school districts to make sure that they have things in place because these incidents are happening too often.
Our CBS News law enforcement expert, Rodney Harrison, thank you very much. And just to update, one suspect in custody after authorities received a report of an active shooting at Apprehended High School, which is about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta. The school went into lockdown. Number of ambulances and helicopters on the scene to transport casualties to local hospitals. At this hour, according to the local sheriff's office, parents are allowed to come pick up their kids. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news. And then tonight, we will have a full wrap-up on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in New York.
All right, we continue to gather new information from this breaking news event out of Georgia. You're seeing as police respond to a school shooting at a high school in Winder.
A suspect is in custody, and police say that casualties, though the extent of those casualties and the number, we do not know, though casualties have been reported. There are also reports that a teacher may have been shot at Apprehended High School in Barrow County. That's roughly an hour northeast of Atlanta. CBS News has not been able to independently verify this information about a teacher, though.
Video that we've been watching from the school shows emergency crews arriving there. Our Jared Eggleston mentioned that he saw dozens of ambulances on the highway and arriving at the high school. We know students have been told to gather at the football field where it's been secured. Kathy Guider joins us now on the phone. She's familiar with incidents like this when information is scarce. But Kathy, what happens next, considering one suspect is in custody, there may be some casualties, and parents still need to reconnect with their kids?
Right. Well, law enforcement's priority right now will be interviewing that one suspect. They're going to try to get as much information as they can, regarding the motive, regarding the planning, things of that nature, while other personnel on site would be working on the reunification of parents and students. So there's going to be a couple of different tracks being worked here by different groups of people.
Anna Schechter is actually here with us in Studio 57 as well, so we want to bring her in. But Kathy, don't go anywhere. We may have more questions for you. Anna is the senior coordinating producer for CBS News' Crime and Public Safety Unit. So Anna, you are familiar, unfortunately, with cases like this. You're also a mom as well. When you're looking at and trying to assess what is happening in a situation like this, what are you looking for?
Well, we're right at the start of school. We're right after a holiday weekend. This follows, sadly, trends that we've seen school shootings around the time of holidays, the beginning of the school year. And unfortunately, it's actually become so common that we've tracked school shootings throughout the year. They happen not just inside the school. That's how we count the number of school shootings. But there's a huge number that happen in the parking lot. So they're still at the school, but they're not always counted as a school shooting. So we talk about securing the school building, and yet many shootings occur just outside of the walls of the school. So I'm looking for exactly where this happened, what kind of security plan the school had in place, and of course the numbers. We're watching. The Sheriff's Department put out a statement. I got an email from the PR person. It's still at casualties. They are not confirming reported numbers out there of the number of casualties, the number of dead and injured. And so we do not have that number at this time, and so we are holding that. But there are multiple agencies on the scene, multiple officers, as you saw, all responding to this. The call was made at 10:23 this morning, so we're a couple of hours after that. Everything is moving very quickly.
And one of the things that strikes me as you speak about the risk to students, not just on campus but near campus, is that in some cases, and it's common in the South as well, you have a type of open campus where each building will not be connected by hallways, but you'll go from building to building. We can see the football field here, which of course is wide open, but on a campus with 1,900 students that might be an open campus, how do officials secure such a massive space and so many people? I would imagine that it's effectively impossible to protect against absolutely every threat.
It's a huge challenge, and with each school shooting, we see different tactics used and a different layout of the building, and so we're almost playing a game of whack-a-mole. Like, as soon as one shooting happens, then we try to implement procedures, metal detectors, for example, to prevent the shooter from bringing a weapon inside. And yet in an open setting like that, we saw the footage, the drone footage, where you see students walking over to the football field, in the stands. There is a school is not just inside the walls of a classroom. And so there are multiple targets. It's so shocking and upsetting right at the start of the school year. We're sitting here in New York City, and tomorrow is the first day in the public school system. My kids had their first day today, and this is happening, and unfortunately it's just commonplace in our country.
And even though these students have been in school for, they started in August, this is still the beginning of the school year. And this is how, unfortunately, we are starting it. Kathy, as Anna was talking about all the different things that she is assessing at this moment, and I'm thinking about the reports that we still haven't substantiated yet, but that maybe a teacher was shot. Given your experience in the FBI as a special agent, what might that tell you about potential motives or what might have transpired inside the school?
Likely, and this is pure speculation, that a teacher, as an adult, tried to intervene, tried to step in, tried to stop the shooter, that they took some type of action, to prevent and protect other students, their students in the classroom or in a hallway.
Too much to ask of a teacher, but unfortunately, we do know that that heroic story is one that has played out multiple times before. We also have with us Brian Higgins, a former police chief. Brian, you have experienced the law enforcement aspect on the ground, the local authorities. How are they interacting now as this has become something that is gaining national attention, the president himself paying attention to what's happening in Georgia?
Well, we saw from the initial outset of this incident that the multiple law enforcement agencies responded. They worked together seamlessly to go into the school, and we see that at least one suspect was arrested immediately or very shortly after police responded. And then they began to work through the school to find victims and bring students out, get them reunified with their parents. That will continue. It's going to continue. They're going to continue to search that school to make sure that there are no other victims, that there are no other shooters, and they're going to work together in an investigation, investigating the shooter, any contact this individual would have with others, how the weapons were acquired, and what the motivation may be for the shooting.
And Brian, one thing you shared with us a short time ago is that you've had conversations with your son about what to do in a situation like this. Our Jared Eggleston was sharing that some parents left.
Okay, I just got an update on this. There are 4 dead and 20 to 30 people injured. That's all I know so far. I'll keep you updated on this throughout the broadcast.
Left their cars on the road and walked to campus to reunite with their kids. And I'm wondering for you also as a parent, I don't know how old your kids are, but I would imagine for any parent, you have to make a decision as to when you have this conversation, what to do in case of a school shooting incident. Have you had that conversation? And if not, when would you and how would you?
I think the key is to talk about this in an age-appropriate way, which is very challenging, but you can start talking to your kids at a younger age. There is research about how to do that, and I'm not qualified to give advice about that, but I think you have to be very careful about the age of the kids. But at this point, children should have, and experts and officials have said there should be an action plan, and running in first, they've actually changed the guidance that they're giving kids. So instead of hiding, you know, when we saw that in Uvalde with the kids being kind of holed up in classrooms, sometimes sitting ducks, they've changed their guidance. So you want to run first, get away from the situation. That is the latest guidance that law enforcement gives, which is a change from years past based on what's happened at multiple school shootings over the last few years. So that's important. Run, hide, and then fight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jarring that that would now have to be standard education for students, and families all need to have this type of conversation. Kathy Guider, I think you may still be with us on the phone, retired FBI analyst. If you are, what's the guidance on this advice? What should parents be telling their kids to do if there is a shooting on campus?
That's tricky in some ways. Definitely you follow the instruction given to you by your classroom instructor or your principal, whoever, might be the one. But as one of your other guests said, if they're in the hallway, if they're coming out of a bathroom and they're not with an adult, a teacher, an educator, someone, then they need to make their own decision. And I, too, have said the same thing to my child, that, you get away from the threat. Remove yourself from the threat as quickly as possible. So, that kind of thing is, I think, what we want to tell our children. But if you're inside a classroom or you're with a teacher, you need to go with what that adult is telling them at that particular time.
Well, that's a really important detail, though. So if a student somehow is by themselves on campus, coming from the restroom, an incident goes down, they're alone, the guidance is get to safety. Do not be, as Anna referenced, a sitting duck. If there's no teachers around, no official guidance, get out.
Correct. Or get to a safe spot. If, let's say there's a janitor's closet and it's a 2x4 closet and you can get in there and you can lock that door, that might be your best safe spot. If you feel that you have the access and the ability, physically, mentally, to get yourself out, then that may be the better option.
Run, hide, and fight. Unfortunately, those are the guidance, that's the updated guidance that we have for our children now as we are starting a new school year with this unfortunate news, a school shooting at Apprehended High School in Winder, Georgia. Scant details about the number of casualties, though we do know that the police say that there is at least one subject in custody. We are still gathering additional information, and we'll bring you that as we have it.
That's right. One suspect in custody, casualties reported. The president is aware of this and watching. The FBI is on scene providing resources and details. We've watched families anxiously try to reunite with their loved ones, and you're seeing footage here of someone, an official moments ago who had an armed, a weapon with him. We're going to continue gathering information. Stay right here on CBS News 24/7 for more. Next, we're going to bring you CBS News 24/7 from San Francisco.
CBS News 24/7 continues breaking news coverage of a school shooting out of Georgia. Our eye on Apprehended High School in Winder, Georgia. That's about an hour outside of Atlanta. And here's your headline at this hour. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the local sheriff there confirm a shooting at that school and casualties. They also confirm one suspect is in custody. Now, let's take you back in time as we look at some of the video that our partners have been able to get from that scene. The school went on lockdown quickly after the first calls came out of that high school around 10:23 a.m. Georgia time. Police and emergency personnel raced to the scene as that school quickly went on that lockdown. Then dozens of police units, ambulances surrounded the school. We've even seen video of helicopters landing there. Students also taken to a football stadium where it appears there's a track facility to sort of corral all of those students in one area. Reporters on the scene tell us that multiple ambulances have taken victims to trauma units nearby. Now, that same reporter saying more than one medical helicopter also taking victims to a trauma center. We can tell you there is a response from leadership there in the state of Georgia. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp looking at video just like you are looking at here on the stream, and moments ago directed all state resources to respond to aid in this incident. We also know interagency cooperation continues with the FBI. The feds are on this one. They are coordinating in that response at the high school. Again, this is at Apprehended High School in Winder, Georgia, about 50 miles away from Atlanta. And that's where we find CBS News reporter Jared Eggleston. He's been live on this scene for about an hour. So our eyes have been on ambulances. We've been hearing the reports of helicopters. Just how many ambulances have you seen coming and going from that scene?
Reed, over the last hour or so, ambulances, I would say dozens, 2 or 3 dozen ambulances have been coming and going from this scene here. That has sort of died down within the last 15 minutes or so. But you mentioned those medical helicopters. That one that I saw circling when I first got here landed, but it's still here. And then the other one that was circling also left. But there is still a significant police presence here, and also a significant parent preference. One of the parents telling me that she went over to the football field to try to get her student, and the school is still trying to count these students. So as you know, in these very fluid breaking news situations, it's a lot of chaos and a lot of people just searching for answers. Those people who are really searching for answers right now are the parents who are just trying to reunite with their loved ones, their students.
And Jared, we're seeing on the screen those ambulances right there, and just a second ago we saw one person being loaded onto that ambulance. We want to be clear to our viewers who are watching all over the world right now on CBS News 24/7. We do not know what casualties mean in this case. We do not know if any of the victims of this shooting are teachers or students. That all is information that is yet to come. But right there, you see community members there, one person taking off his shirt to put on one of the persons who's sitting there with a blanket over them. Also, we're seeing right now, Jared, on the screen, emergency personnel going into that school. Others gathered right there by a stretcher underneath the Georgia and the American flag flying. We know in these cases that every time we hear of a bullet flying in a school, this is somebody that's involved. That's no doubt got to be the heartbeat of all of these parents who are coming to the scene. Where are the parents right now? What are they being told about getting their students out of that school?
Well, initially when I got here, I was along this sidewalk right in front of the school where a lot of the media has gathered, and it was just swarmed with parents. A lot of them even left their cars as they just rushed towards the school. A lot of the parents have moved over towards the football stadium over here so that they could be reunited. But as I said, a lot of the parents are still kind of rushing to the scene. I would say for about a mile or two radius around the school, parents are just ditching their cars on side streets, on areas where you wouldn't normally park a car. That's an active roadway, and rushing over to that football stadium to try to get answers. I do know that the students have been evacuated out there, and the school district says that they are actively working to reunite the students and the families.
We also want to let our viewers know that it is our understanding that a suspect is in custody. That may inform our view and our understanding of why it looks like there's some movement there. Jared, we'll check back in with you a little bit later here on the stream. Thank you for that report. We know you have a lot of work to do today. So we also have CBS affiliate coverage that we want to get you to right now. Often, these stories are best told right there on the ground level with our network of CBS partners. Let's listen into their coverage.
Yeah, Lana, we have been speaking with parents, but I want to bring in Mark Knotts. He's a witness. He lives across the street from the high school. You don't have any children, Mark, but you said that you live across the street, and just tell us what you heard this morning.
Well, this morning when I woke up, I heard gunshots, and several of them. I couldn't tell exactly how many, so I went outside to smoke my cigarette like I do every morning. And I noticed about 5 minutes after that, cop cars were everywhere. Surrounding 6 counties were everywhere. I'm talking about 1,000 cop cars. And I knew something was seriously wrong. And then I seen all the cars pulling on the side of the road and everything. And I just, I pray that, everybody's all right. And the people that have passed away, if there has been anybody, I just pray for their families and everything. And like I said, I just had to get away, and I'm just commuting to the store real quick. So,
shortly after you heard those gunshots, did people start coming out of the school?
It was crazy. Like it looked like I didn't really pay no attention to it at first. I was like, this sounded like they were at the school. And I look over, and then the alarms started going off, like the school alarms, and people were going out around the school, and like they're doing like the drill, like the drill, fire drill stuff is what I seen. And then I knew something was seriously wrong. And you don't hear about that happening. You hear about it happening all around the world, but it just shows that it can happen anywhere. And
this community's pretty small, tight knit. I mean, it's usually pretty.
There's really no seriously gunplay or nothing like that goes on around Bethlehem. It hasn't been for years. It hasn't been that I can remember, and I'm 35 years old, so it's not really likely. So apparently. I don't know. I don't have no details, but apparently something was going on with somebody's mental. So that just shows that people need to be more aware of their children, if it was a child, about their mental mental state, because nobody never knows what the next man can do.
And, you
They're
know, that's,
skeptical of it, no matter what age
those
they
are details we're still trying to work out as far as what happened and what the motive may have been. But thank you so much, Mark, for your time. You as well. And Mark was telling us he lives right across from the high school. He says, of course, it's just been chaos out there this morning. All kinds of police officers, parents, children. He was actually walking towards us with his head down. He said, I just need to step away from this for a little bit. He said he's walking up to the store to just take a breath. I mean, even people that really aren't involved with what happened at the school, this is a very highly emotional time for everybody in this community, guys.
Yeah, Chelsea, he mentioned mental health, and Representative Esther Panich actually did say that today. I know there's still a lot more emphasis on what has happened, but she did note for anybody affected or traumatized by what's happening right now at Apprehended High School, you can dial 988 and get help. This is such a horrible situation. And Chelsea, while we still have you here, I just wanted you to see if you could fill in what you've been hearing from parents. I know we don't have anybody who's willing to go live with you right now. As you can imagine, they are just trying to get to their babies and try to figure out what's going on there. But can you just fill us in of what you've heard from parents that you've talked to as they've rushed by you to get to the school?
Yeah, you know, we spoke with a grandmother who is very distraught. She was walking down the street here. Her grandson is okay, and she's so thankful that he's okay. But she said he was in the room where a classmate was shot. So she's very thankful that her grandson is doing fine, but she says, of course, mentally, this is going to be very hard and something he's not going to forget the rest of his life. We also spoke with another woman who said she was the older sister of a girl here that's 14 years old, and she was also racing down this street here to get there and pick her sister up. She said she was okay, but was completely shaken up, said she got a phone call from her crying this morning saying there's an active shooter, please come pick me up. And I think we do have some of that soundbite that we'll play for you now.
Is she okay if you talk to her? Yeah, I've talked to her. She's a little nervous. They're on the football field waiting on the parents to come get them. She's very nervous.
Did she hear the gunshot?
I don't know. She didn't tell me. She just called us and said, could you hurry up and come get us? There's an active shooter here. And my first thing was to make sure she was okay. Nobody was hurt. So that's my biggest concern.
When you heard there was an active shooter?
Yeah, my heart started beating. I was actually on my way to go to work. And then I just dropped everything and I just got in the car and I left. The traffic was so bad at the front. I was in the middle of the red light and people were blowing, but there was nothing I could do. So the main thing is to make sure these kids are okay. So
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have a good luck. Be safe. And you can see we did that interview as she was, you know, almost jogging down to the school. This road here, Tom Miller Road, you can see people walking down it still at this hour, trying to get here, get off work and collect their children from the high school following the shooting that took place here this morning. Again, a lot of parents have made contact with their children and learned that they're okay, but we did speak with another mom who came up to us crying. She said she couldn't get in touch with her son, who's a senior here, was asking us for information, which of course we're still trying to get for everybody at home as well. We know that the sheriff's office is going to be holding a press conference shortly that Adam Murphy will be covering for us, guys.
All right, Chelsea, thanks very much. Your heart goes out to all.
You're watching CBS News 24/7, dipping into our CBS partner there in Winder, Georgia. Once again, the headline, a school shooting at Apprehended High School. And we want to get you these late-breaking details from 2 law enforcement sources. We can now confirm 2 dead, 4 wounded, suspect now in custody. So a lot to unpack here. I'm just hearing right now that law enforcement is going to give us that promised news conference that you just heard our partner in the field talk about. Let's go ahead and listen in right now.
2 minutes.
All right. So here's what happens in situations like these. Once in a while, they come to the microphone, but then they stop to gather a little bit more information. So we understand any moment now that law enforcement official will step to the microphone and really in these situations give us very clear information. We have been able to confirm through those 2 law enforcement sources, once again, 2 dead, 4 wounded. But in situations like these, one of the challenges for law enforcement, in addition to making sure that they get the suspect, in addition to making sure that the wounded get to where they need to get, in addition to keeping the scene tight so that people are safe and that investigation can be bulletproof, so to speak. A terrible term to use there, but so that they can really investigate and do a good job in their investigation. The other thing that they need to do is clear through any misinformation that might spread on social media. We live in times right now that what you see on X may not immediately be true. So those news conferences are important things to happen because that is where you hear it directly from the people who are there at the scene. They will be able to tell us more about the injured, the victims, and how this all played out. So let's go ahead now and listen in. It appears he is getting ready to speak right now. Once again, outside of a high school, Apprehended High School, Winder, Georgia. We understand 1,900 students went to school there this morning expecting to get an education, but instead terror at school. Listen.
Smith, I'm the sheriff of Bexar County Sheriff's Office. We're standing on the campus of Apprehended High School here at Bexar County Schools. First and foremost, I want to lift up our community. I want to give our sympathies to our community, our school system, our kids, our parents that had to witness this today. Obviously, what you see behind us is an evil thing today. At about 9:30 this morning, we received the first call that there was an active shooter on this campus. We're not releasing any information as far as injuries, but we have multiple injuries. This is a very, very fluid investigation. It's very early. And I have asked the assistance of the GBI and the agencies here behind me today, and there are multiple agencies that responded this morning to help us and help the sheriff's office. We do have a suspect in custody, and we are asking for your patience as the media to please let us get the facts that we need to make sure we get this right. Again, I've asked the GBI to help us, the sheriff's office, to help us along with this. I know this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not going to answer questions after this is over with. But I wanted to give you the respect and our community respect to let them know what was going on initially. We're in the process of reunifying our students with their parents. Obviously, that's chaotic, but we want to be respectful of them and their privacy as well. I want to thank the state, the federal agencies, the local agencies that showed up today, as you can see, the multiple EMS and fire from other agencies that responded today. Again, I ask that you lift up Bexar County Schools, lift up Appalachia, lift up our agencies. This is going to take multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened. But I wanted to give you a statement. It is our hope, in conjunction with these people behind us, that we can give you another statement around 4 o'clock, because I know you have to go back on the air. That is my hope. But I wanted to be fluid with you all, understanding that it's fluid as well with this investigation.
People will put out false garbage about you. The biggest whopper in this campaign is that my Democratic opponents have claimed I voted to restrict IVF treatment when I was in the Senate, and that's just blatantly false. I know it is such an important treatment to have. It's fantastic. It's miraculous. I will protect women's access to IVF. As governor, I will not let anyone change that.
Okay, there's supposed to be an update here at 4 o'clock. It is 3:58. So we'll sit here and wait for that. I do have an update also on the missing elderly couple out of Redlands, California that went missing on so not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. There has been an arrest made in that. And some bodies were recovered. They don't, right now, the autopsy hasn't been out yet, so it's not confirmed if it is Danielle and Stephanie Medlin. So I'm going to keep looking up on that. So if, and also if I will not be available in the chat room. So please, if I don't respond to you right away, when I get it, I will respond back to you.
Atención, mejor no te muevas porque te ganan el juego. No, pero deja ahí el trípode. Te lo aviento por allá. In the next 5 minutes. Primero que se lo va a tomar tuyo. No, aquí están, todos están transmitiendo en vivo, no quieren que ni te acerques. No. ¿Dónde dejaste tu carro? Detrás del tuyo. Cuando nosotros venimos hasta aquí, y era el caos. Nos tocó pegar una caminada como de 2 millas. Yo también, yo lo acabo de mover. Ah, lo acabo de mover.
Oh. Wow.
Estaba buscando, digo que estaba buscando un estatus McDonald's para conectarme al Wi-Fi y la vaina. ¿Sabes que no has hecho nada? Otro que hace. El live me lo quiere decir, tranquilo. It seems like I've lost the stream. I'll try to refresh it here.
I fully believe that Kelly Ayotte would ban abortion in New Hampshire.
First it's abortion, then it's IVF.
So right now I'm trying to find anything else here instead of having dead audio here. Let me see what else I can find. Who else is streaming? Now, Atlanta News First is actually saying that there's 4 dead and 9 hospitalized in shooting. They would be the ones to have more of the update. Sorry about that. So, don't know if it's actually 4 dead and 20 to 30 people injured. So, we're going to go by what Atlanta News First is saying. So, I'm going to bring you right into that very shortly.
Spoken to eyewitnesses who were inside Apprehended High School when the shooting took place, in the classroom directly next to the shooting. And we were told that some of the procedures that the teachers went through were drills that they had done before this incident even happened. And that we heard was that the doors automatically locked. The teachers quickly went into action, turned off the lights, and huddled students away from the gunfire into a corner. But the question now, is that enough?
We spoke with a 10th grader who told us at first they thought it was some books that had fallen down. And she said as it went on, they realized it was gunfire. They all huddled in the classroom. People started pulling out their phones. So she texted her mother saying, I text her saying, I don't know if I'm going to see you again, but that I love you. And when you hear students describe has been their reality today, it's truly so imaginable what they've been through and what this community is now going through. We were talking about the news conference that was set to begin at 4 o'clock to get an update from law enforcement. That has now been pushed back to 4:30.
Let's go to Adam Murphy. Adam, you're outside of that press conference and waiting for it to start. And there's a lot of unanswered questions, primarily who were the 4 victims that lost their lives today and the injured. More details about them. There's so much to learn.
So much to learn. We hope to gather a little bit of new information for you in the next 15 minutes. The GBI pushing out an alert telling us that news briefing has now been scheduled for 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are ready for that. We hope to learn new information, as you mentioned, about those who lost their lives, those that were injured, and also the shooter. Now, at this point in time, I can tell you, I spoke with many students and their parents, They talked about the terrifying moments in the classroom while they were in school and they heard gunfire in the hallways. Many of the students were immediately rushed or evacuated out of the building back to the stadium, and they said that they were told to get out so quickly that a lot of them left their phones behind and had no way to communicate with their parents to let them know that they were okay. But I do want to share one piece of video with you. After speaking with a student that heard the gunfire, we have permission from her mother to show this video. She got out her cell phone and shot some footage as law enforcement officers rushed into the classroom. They were wearing tactical gear, they were armed. They came in to make sure that all the students were accounted for. Also, you will probably see with this footage, they go out into the hallway as they're escorting some of these students out and trying to evacuate them out of the building. There were several law enforcement officers armed in the hallway as well. It was very chaotic and very terrifying. One can only imagine, what this might do to a child to witness and experience something so traumatic. But we hope to gain some new information about what led to all of this. I've reported now several times, based on some students' testimony to me, is that there were no metal detectors. So that's something I'm sure that might come up. We also want to know about the school resource officers. Were they on duty? Were they here at the school at the time of this? What was their response? Did they see this happening? So a lot of questions still remain, but a very difficult day for so many in this community, and any parent for that matter, that has to hear about something like this happen, especially when it happens in their school to their child. We will have new information for you hopefully here within the next 15 to 20 minutes, guys.
And Adam, before we let you go, I just want to ask you this question. CNN is reporting this now, and it is drawing a lot of ire from parents in this community. And according to law enforcement, there was a phone call that was made to Apprehended High School early this morning, alerting the school staff that there would be 5 school shootings and Apprehended High School would be one of the first. There's still no determination who made that phone call, who accepted the phone call, and if the school took any proactive steps. I know that you'll be asking those questions too.
Well, certainly, and if that really happened, then one would think immediately you would place all of the schools that were mentioned on lockdown until that could be vetted and cleared. We don't know if that happened here. We know just after 9:30, that's when reports came in to law enforcement about an active shooter in the school here at Apprehended High School in Barrow County. We don't know, though, exactly when that lockdown was activated. Was it activated immediately after receiving that call, or was it activated once the shooter had access to the building? That's a very important question. We need to know that timeline as well. To that point, I will say I spoke with a parent of a child that attended the elementary school, which is nearby. He was in the area because they were on lockdown as well when all of this took place, and he was waiting to reunite with his child, and he mentioned the same thing. He mentioned that he had heard reports that there might be shootings involving multiple schools in the area. So that is certainly something that will be brought up during this news briefing, and we hope to get some new information and some answers for you as soon as authorities address the podium.
All right, Adam Murphy with us live here in Winder in Barrow County. Thank you so much, Adam, and we'll come back to you as that news conference gets started. But where we are outside the high school, it is still very much an active scene. You see the police tape about 30 yards from where we're standing, a number of law enforcement agencies. All the students' vehicles are still in these parking lots as investigators now look and comb the scene.
We also have a lot of choppers above, including our own. Let's take the vantage point of the First Alert chopper that is honing in on some images in the parking lot. I want to preface this. We don't know what type of white vans these are. Now, typically when we see a crime scene and we see white vans, it sometimes is the medical examiner's office. We are trying to determine what those vans are. Why are they here? Or is it just law enforcement collecting evidence? This is a massive crime scene with a lot of evidence that has to be collected. And it's just gut-wrenching because there's so many unknowns, and you know your mind can take you to places that you don't need it to go right now. We are out here, we're asking questions, waiting for this press conference to give you brand new information.
And it could stay a crime scene for a while. I remember being in Uvalde, Texas. It was closed off to the public a very long time. So investigators could go in there and go from classroom to classroom. We don't know the layout. We don't know what kind of crime scene we're looking at. This is a big school. About 1,900 kids go here. So this is a big school. Even though we're in one of our smaller counties, it is still a big school with a lot of kids who are going here.
And we're asking questions also from school administrators in the district because of the fact that this is a crime scene and we don't know when students will be allowed to return to campus. Where will they go to school? I mean, unfortunately, when incidents happen like this, the education has to continue. Where will they go? Will neighboring schools allow the students to come and attend school with them? Will they go to what we saw during COVID, at-home learning? Those questions we hope to get answered tonight before families try to determine what they're going to do. They have jobs, they have to go to work. What do we do with our kids tomorrow? Those answers we don't have yet, but we are certainly asking them.
Sean, the reality is that this community is suffering in a major way because there are a number of loved ones who will not be coming home tonight to their families. And you think back to the start of this day, it is a beautiful day here in the Atlanta area, a nice breeze. It couldn't be more picturesque and more of a beautiful day here in our city and in our community. And to know that
people are injured in local hospitals. I know Savannah Louie, you were at the breaking news desk. You've just learned brand new information. What have you learned?
Well, we are now hearing from leaders across the country, including Vice President Kamala Harris. She spoke at a campaign event earlier today in New Hampshire, where she called for an end to the epidemic of gun violence. Take a listen.
But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all.
And Harris ended by saying, quote, "It doesn't have to be this way, guys."
Savannah, thanks so much. And the word senseless comes to mind for so many people when they talk about this. And this community, we were talking earlier how it will be some time till this community can get past this. Right now, they're still very much trying to digest it. As you and I both arrived here, you couldn't help but see parents and students
and they're still walking.
We walk right off camera there, and you see them, and I can't imagine what's going through their minds. And I know we both have kids, and when you think about something like this, we all worry about getting that call.
Well, we spoke with an eyewitness earlier today, a 10th grader, and I almost broke down. It's so hard when you hear these stories and you see that there are so many school districts that are trying to make children focus on their classroom studies, and they're taking away their cell phones. But what we heard today was the cell phone was a lifeline for a 10th grader who texted her mother and said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it out here alive. I am scared, but I want you to know that I love you." She made it out okay. But there are other students, there's other people that we don't know if they did. We do know that 4 people have died. The community has rallied around the community of Apprehended High School, and also this is impacting not just the high school, but the middle school, the elementary school, and Winder Methodist Church is going to hold a prayer vigil and just a gathering for families to come together, vet this out. Express your emotions, because this is a senseless tragedy.
Sure, and you have to think, how do parents here in this community talk with their kids about what's happened here at the neighboring middle school, even the preschool across the street? But how do parents talk to their kids across this country about what has happened, and then send, so many schools just getting started here in Atlanta. We've been in school for about 3 or 4 weeks now, but how do you have that conversation with your kids and send them off to school tomorrow and say, have a great day, we know you're going to be okay?
The first thing I did when I even heard that this had happened, I texted my husband, because we can't text our daughter because she's at a school that doesn't allow them to have cell phones. But immediately I said, somehow, some way, check, make sure everything is okay. And our school wasn't even impacted by this. But this has a trickle-down effect, because the question that every parent is going to be asking tonight is my child safe in school.
Sure. I didn't even know. Walking out the door, my 3 boys were there, and they said, why are you leaving work early today? I said, there's been an incident at the school. And how do you explain that to young kids who you know will pick up this information? They will hear about it from their friends, and how do you have that conversation? It is a national conversation. The conversation today here, unfortunately, in Barrow County is a wait for answers. We're expecting law enforcement to come to the microphones here. Maybe in 5 minutes, the update we were getting is at 4:30, but the latest information we are getting is that, and this was as of a couple hours ago, 4 people killed, 9 others ending up in the hospital. The suspect is in custody. The suspect is alive. There were some inaccurate reports earlier. The suspect may not have been alive, but the latest information we are getting is that the suspect is in custody. As to who that is, we hope to get that here in this 4:30 news conference.
And hopefully we can take the vantage point from the first alert chopper above the scene here at Apprehended High School. There are multiple big, huge white vans that are in the parking lot of Apprehended High School. We have not been able to determine what those vans are doing, but we are making the assumption that they are collecting evidence. There are long lines still. This is now 4:26 in the afternoon. School had been let out almost an hour ago. The lockdown was lifted, and there are still mounds and mounds of cars lined up. There are still parents that are pulling up to the elementary school, the middle school, the high school to reunite with their student.
And parents were having a tough time getting this close. The closer you got to the school, as you can imagine, the roads were closed off. Law enforcement were closing off those roads. And so what you had is parents, community members, parking on the sides of roads, making it the roads so tight and narrow to get through because they were ditching their cars and getting out, coming to the school, walking in, no matter how long it took. They just wanted to make sure the kids are okay and that they're safe.
And again, I just want to reiterate that if you are in Barrow County, if you are in the Winder community, Winder Methodist Church is holding a prayer vigil.
Yeah, they've opened up their church all day long and into the evening, knowing this community is hurting. And the Winder United Methodist Church will be there for people who want to come there and pray tonight and just be together.
We are awaiting a press conference that is scheduled to start in less than 3 minutes. Our Adam Murphy is in the position where the press conference will be held by law enforcement. We are expecting to hear details more about the 4 victims who lost their lives today. We're also expecting to hear about the 9 who are injured.
If you saw the news conference earlier around 2 or 2:30, they were giving basic information. I think at that point they were still trying to gather the information and also trying to notify families of those who may have lost ones. They want the families to hear it first rather than explaining to the media.
Well, let's go. We have a reporter on location. I believe that this is Chelsea Bindfor. Chelsea, tell us where you are and what have you learned so far?
Well, we're still on Tom Miller Road. This is about a mile from the school. This is where we've been positioned today, and this is where a lot of parents were being asked to park their cars and then walk about a mile to the high school back here behind us. So traffic is moving freely on this road once again. So it has been reopened up to cars. But I want to take you to some video of those parents that we talked to as they were literally running, walking as fast as they could this mile to the high school. We spoke with parents and grandparents. Some knew that their children were okay. They had been texting with them. They were saying, we're out on the football field, please come pick us up. But we also spoke to parents who had not been able to get in touch with their son or their daughter. A high school student, Melanie Alvarez, says she texted her mom as soon as the lockdown started and said, I love you. I hope I see you again. Her mom tells us that she raced to the school and was eventually reunited with Melanie out on the football field. We spoke with both of them as they were leaving the high school today.
I was scared. I was like, oh my God, like, are we seriously going through a lockdown? I started crying. I was like, I just want to get out of here. I just want to see my parents. Like, I don't want to be here no more. I just broke down crying completely.
And all of a sudden I hear her voice up from the bleachers and I just started crying and, you know, thanking God in my head. Thank you, God, for allowing me to see my daughter again.
A lot of parents thankful to be reunited with their children. We know, unfortunately, that will not be the case for some families of those victims, but also those survivors. They witnessed horrible trauma today. So now families, they're talking about, you know, how this is going to impact their children for the rest of their lives. Guys, back to you.
Chelsea, thank you. You're mentioning that you spoke to eyewitness. We spoke to some here as well. A 10th grader who was in the classroom directly where the shooting happened. She reported hearing, she said, a series of gunshots. It was not just one or two. Yeah, that's how she described it. It was multiple gunshots and several successions of rounds of fire. When she came out of the classroom, when everything had settled, she said that she saw a lot of injuries. We know that the press conference, Blair, it is about to start here shortly. Law enforcement is now starting to approach the podium. There are going to be a lot of questions, particularly the one of a lot of concern for us in our newsroom is, was there a phone call made to Apprehended High School before school started, warning district administrators and the school personnel that there would be a school shooting at 5 different schools and that Apprehended would be the first?
Law enforcement gave an update a little earlier. We're expecting a lot more details on what they know, the latest information, but what we were hearing is that 4 people shot and killed here at Apprehended High School. And we look over our shoulder, you can see this large law enforcement presence that is on its way. It is a slow walk, a very deliberate walk from Apprehended High School, where there has been this tragedy, to these cameras, where they will be offering some new insight into what they've learned here. And you can only imagine what's the tales from inside that store.
I am just watching the body language, Blair. Just the body language alone is giving me a sense that the tone is going to, number one, be somber. We do know that there were 4 people killed. The question is, will they have the next of kin been notified, and will they share that information? But it's a very deliberate walk. The faces are somber. They're actually looking down at the ground while they're walking. I anticipate that this press conference, it may be gut-wrenching. Law enforcement, they've seen what they've seen inside of the school. We don't know what type of weapon was used, at what point, how close was the student when they shot the victims? Was it at point range? This crime scene is massive, and what they have seen is probably unthinkable. But as they approach the podium, we're preparing to hear their statement.
We know local law enforcement is here. We know the FBI is here. GBI is here as this news conference is about to get underway. And as they start to take the podium and give us an update, let's go ahead and take it live now as this is about to begin.
Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and we wanted to come back this afternoon and present you with a little more of a timeline of the events that have taken place here today and what we know up to this point with the investigation. At approximately 10:20 a.m. this morning, the Broward County Sheriff's Office received alerts about reports of an active shooter and radio traffic from school resource officers concerning the same concern, or having the same concern. Within minutes, law enforcement was on scene, as well as 2 school resource officers assigned here to the school, who immediately encountered the subject within just minutes of this report going out. Once they encountered the subject immediately surrendered to these officers, and he was taken into custody. Additionally, what I want you to know as of now, there are 4 individuals who are deceased from this incident, 9 that have been taken to local hospitals with various injuries. Of those that are deceased, 2 are students and 2 are teachers here at the school. The priority right now for us within this investigation is to gather all the facts, to make sure that we're accurate with it, because this is a murder investigation. As the sheriff mentioned earlier this morning, the shooter is in custody. His name is Colt, that's C-O-L-T, Gray. He is a 14-year-old student here at the school, G-R-A-Y. He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder, and he will be tried as an adult and handled as an adult. We're coordinating these charges and obviously this investigation with District Attorney Brad Smith, who is the District Attorney for the Piedmont Judicial Circuit here. Since earlier this morning we talked with you, and since the incident occurred, numerous interviews have been taking place through our investigation with students, faculty, as well as any other witnesses that we could identify. Law enforcement had a very, very swift response to this incident once the incident was determined that there was a concern here. Those resources, whether it was in that response or throughout this investigation to assist, came obviously from the sheriff's office here, from other local law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies, and federal law enforcement agencies as well. To include, not to be left out, multiple EMS personnel, multiple fire personnel, and agencies for that quick response and the partnerships of working here together with what all is going on. Currently, from the investigative perspective, we have crime scene agents and other special agents from the GBI, from close to a dozen of our different work units from across the state that have responded here today to work on this investigation, again, collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and so forth. I do want to pass this along, that if anyone has any information that wants to be passed on concerning this investigation, that they can do that anonymously at our tip line at 1-800-597-TIPS or 1-800-597-8477. They can also report this on by downloading the See Something, Send Something app. That can be done by Android or Apple phones, either one. If they need to report any tips concerning this investigation. Let me close out before I turn this over to the sheriff and just remind you that this is still a very active investigation. There is still a lot that is very fluid. There's still a lot of interviews to be conducted that will continue on into the night, as well as crime scene work and collecting and gathering evidence. But what is more important for me to mention here to you is my heartfelt sympathy to the parents, the students that were here today. Regardless of where they were in the school, this has got a great impact on them as well as on this community. My thoughts and prayers, along with everybody standing behind me and every law enforcement agency in this state, and many I will tell you around this country, they are in our thoughts and prayers, and we will continue with that. We ask for your patience as we continue through this, and we'll continue to try to give you as many updates with information as we can to keep you informed. But thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to Barrow County Sheriff Judge Smith. Thank you.
Director, would you spell your name, please?
H-O-S-E-Y.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Judge Smith of the Barrow County Sheriff's Office. I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today. I cannot thank the people behind me for the support they give me today, to give this office and give this staff. This hits home for me. I was born and raised here. I went to school in this school system. My kids go to this school system. I'm proud of this school system. My heart hurts for these kids. My heart hurts for our community. But I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county. I want that to be very clear and known. Love will prevail over what happened today. I assure you of that. It is very early as to what happened. Governor Kemp reached out to me and has provided me every single resource that he has to make sure justice prevails. I don't know why it happened. I may not ever know. We may not ever know. But I ask that you and our community lift up our schools, lift up our public safety, and that, again, we do not let this hateful event prevail as to what happened today. I want to thank the surrounding agencies and counties and cities and state and federal authorities that have come and provided us, because they prevented a lot of more tragic events from happening. Continue to lift up these families, continue to lift up our students and our kids, and know that love will prevail. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. LaDuff, our school superintendent, to come and speak on behalf of the school.
Good afternoon, I'm Dallas LaDuff. I'm the superintendent of Bexar County School System. I want to thank the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and all of our law enforcement partners for their swift response today, along with that of our staff. I'd also like to thank our community for their response and patience as we work to reunify the students with their families here today and secure the rest of our school campuses. Our schools will be closed for the remainder of this week as we cooperate fully with law enforcement to get answers to the many questions that we all have about this incident here today. But as we are closed, our central offices will remain open, where we will have grief counseling available for our community every day this week and thereafter as we support each other through this terrible event. In closing, I just want to say to our community, as a school system, we are here for you, we support you, and we are ready to get you any support that you may need as we grieve through this together. Thank you.
Sheriff, if you're saying hate will not prevail in this community, are you investigating this as some sort of hate crime?
Well, shortly, if someone decides to take a firearm into a school where kids are given an education or entitled to an education and want to harm others, to me it's hateful.
Sheriff, can you talk about the initial interaction between whoever was able to stop the shooter? Can you describe that to us? How did it go down? What exactly happened for us?
Obviously the shooter was armed and our school resource officer engaged him, and the shooter quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer-involved shooting. He gave up, got on the ground, and the deputy took him into custody.
Sheriff, any idea how the weapon got inside the school, and was there any warning that this was going to happen?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, very early, and we're still looking into that, whether or not, or how he obtained it and how he got it into school.
Sure. Have you been in touch at all with his parents or his family to learn more about what led up to these moments?
We have.
Any information you can share?
No.
What kind of weapon was
It seems like you have a large Hispanic population. Have you been able to communicate with the people in their language to make sure that everybody knows what's happening?
Yes, sir, I have. The school and our office has people that speak in Spanish, and they have spoke to those folks as well. Yes.
How is video surveillance helping the sheriff?
Speaking with the law enforcement now?
Sorry.
Is the shooter talking? Is he saying why?
The shooter was interviewed, and he was speaking with our investigators earlier, along with the GBI.
How is video surveillance? How is that helping the sheriff?
It is helping our investigation.
Sheriff, is this
reports of threatening calls perhaps made to the school prior to the shooting? Is that accurate?
None that I'm aware of.
Were all 9 injured victims shot?
In some capacity, yes.
Sheriff, can you tell us about the 2 individuals deceased, and was one targeted?
We don't know of any targets at this point.
Sheriff, what kind of weapon was used? Have you identified the weapon?
We have not identified that at this point. No.
Sheriff, is there a connection?
This is the last question I'm going to take.
Sheriff, is there a connection between the shooter and the victims?
None that I'm aware of.
Was the shooter a student here at the school?
I know that you have a lot of questions about the student and that we mentioned, that we identified earlier. Keep in mind that that's part of our investigation, that we're looking into every aspect of that individual, his connection here at the school. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he was a student here. So as part of our investigation, we're looking into all aspects, current and prior, involving that individual.
Can you tell us how many rounds were fired? He is a student. Can you tell us how many rounds were fired?
Do what?
The shooter is a student, yes.
When can we expect the
We do not know how many rounds.
Director, has that shooter had any past history with law enforcement?
For now, this is the information that we have. It is an active investigation. I assure you we do plan to come back out here in a couple of hours. Please make sure you're following the GBIX page. That's where we're going to be putting the updates. If there's anything that's new, we'll make sure that we share that information. It's still very early. Investigators have a lot of work to do. We appreciate your patience. Do expect another in-person news conference out here in the next few hours. Monitor the X page, and we will be sure to update you accordingly. Thank you.
And that's the on x.com?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Also sharing in that grief as we got an update from law enforcement as they now walk off from the podium. And the latest information, and a lot of new information came out of that, Sean, identifying the shooter as a 14-year-old student, which many people will struggle to believe in all that. We know that 4 people are dead. 2 of them were students. 2 of them were teachers killed. This is a murder investigation. We know that suspect will be tried as an adult. There was a lot that came up several times about the response by law enforcement, how quick the response is, and that goes back to the shooting in Uvalde, because there was so much criticism against law enforcement there in Texas. And how
in fact, some
quick.
people lost their jobs because of the response. But we're hearing from both GBI, from the school superintendent, also from the sheriff here in Barrow County, that there was according to them, the response time was quick. And that, in fact, the 14-year-old suspect who was a student at Apprehended High School, there were 2 resource officers who were armed who confronted the 14-year-old student. And according to the sheriff, the student knew that it was not going to end positively for that student if he did not surrender. They said he surrendered peacefully. He was then confiscated and then taken into police custody. We've learned that that student is 14-year-old Colt Gray. He was a student here at Apprehended High School. Again, 2 students are among the fatalities, as well as 2 teachers that are dead. We were not given the names. They also said that the injuries to those 9 individuals who were hurt in this incident suffered some type of gunshot wound.
We also heard that the suspect, obviously in custody now, but is helping with the investigation and is talking with investigators, which is a key component to figure out why all this took place today as they sort this through and they investigate not only what happened inside there, but what he's saying about what happened that day.
So a lot of people are probably wondering, if you have children at Apprehended High School, we have learned from the school superintendent that classes will be dismissed all this week. There will be no school whatsoever, but they are going to have their resource office open where they will have grief counselors on staff for anyone, whether you're a student in the school district or you live in the community or you're in the surrounding community and you need someone to talk to help you process the grief, to discuss how you can help talk to your children about it will be safe to go back to school again. They are making those resources available.
The grief not only for the students, but as you point out, for members of the community, and we heard the sheriff there get emotional, understandably, saying how much this hits close to home in his own community, saying he never thought he'd be here doing this, talking about what happened in this community here today.
We told you that there are 9 individuals that are recovering from some type of injury related to the shooting here at Apprehended High School. Let's go to Madeline Montgomery. Madeline, you're outside of the hospital where some of the injured have been taken.
That's correct. We have a breakdown actually of how many people are within the Northeast Georgia health system right now. And we know that it's actually 6 people in total who are here inside of this facility. And it is 2 here who are gunshot victims here. And the other folks who are here are suffering even from panic attacks, issues. And then there's also 1 victim, not a gunshot victim, but a victim of a panic attack at their Brazelton facility. And we also know that there is a gunshot victim at the Level 1 Trauma Center that the Northeast Georgia Medical Center has in Gainesville. And we're told that all of these gunshot victims are going to be okay. They have non-life-threatening injuries. And we know that there's also a patient confirmed by Children's Healthcare of Atlanta at their Eggleston location. And we have it confirmed by Grady that they also have a patient over there. And we do not know the statuses of those patients. And we also don't know the breakdown of those patients, whether they were students or whether they were faculty. But we did just learn in that news conference that it was 2 students and 2 faculty members who were shot and killed at Apprehended High School. For now, reporting live out here in Wine Durham, Madeline Montgomery, Atlanta News First.
Thank you, Madeline. And that we've also heard from Governor Brian Kemp. He is very closely watching the situation that's developing here at Apprehended High School. He has reached out to the sheriff himself and told the sheriff that I am going to extend every resource that the state of Georgia has to make sure that justice is brought and due diligence on this investigation happens here in Winder.
It is still very much an active investigation, as they said, here behind us, and it may be some time till these students' cars can leave this parking lot. And you see the fire trucks behind us, law enforcement, EMS out there. It is going to be some time that they're out here investigating. We just heard that news conference update from law enforcement. Let's bring in our Adam Murphy, who was also, you were there, Adam, and I'm curious what stood out to you as we got that update.
Well, Blair, let me say this. I know we wanted to know the answer as to whether or not the school district received some sort of call first thing this morning alerting them that there would be a series of school shootings, and the first would be here at Apprehended High School in Barrow County. And the Sheriff Judd Smith, answered that question saying he was unaware of any call or alert that was made to the school district, to the school itself or the school system, warning them of a potential school shooting. So he squashed that particular information, saying that they are not aware of any sort of call or alert made prior to this incident occurring. He did say the shooter walked in the building, he was armed. They did talk about another thing that I had brought up. One of the questions we wanted answers to was, were the two assigned resource officers here? Were they at the school at the time this happened? And did they act on the active shooter that arrived in the building? And the answer was yes. You heard the sheriff talk about the fact that one of those school resource officers encountered the shooter almost immediately upon coming into the school and was able to stop the shooter from firing off more shots, basically saying it's not going to end well for him if he continued. He negotiated with this gunman and then took him into custody, and that clearly must have saved many more lives based on what was going on in such a short period of time. Now, I also made some other notes here. I want to refer to the notes that I have. The sheriff talked about hate. He said hate will not be tolerated in Barrow County or in any of the schools or school system itself in this county, and love and justice will prevail. He said this is personal to him because he went through this school system. He has children in the school system as well, and his heart hurts for the students and the community. Now, he says, Sheriff Judd Smith went on to say he doesn't know why it happened, and we may never know why it happened. We hope their investigation will lead to some answers, and knowing that the gunman is in custody and alive, we may get eventually, not right away, but we may get some detailed information as to a motive and what led to all of this. Now, the sheriff said there was no indication that the gunman was targeting anybody in particular. And we do know 2 staff members and 2 students died after the gunman opened fire. School being closed for the rest of the week. Grief counselors are being offered up at the district offices as well. And you know, one of the quotes I have here from Sheriff Smith, he says, I never imagined that I would be speaking about pure evil. He talked about, you know, this is where he grew up and this is his hometown, and he never imagined that he'd walk before a set of dozens of news cameras and speak to the public, speak to the media and everyone else about pure evil. So a very tragic day for many people in this community. We hope to continue to get new information because we are being told by the GBI that they will provide another update within a couple of hours, guys.
Thank you so much.
And Adam, we've also learned that school, as you mentioned, will be closed for the rest and the remainder of the week because this is now an active murder scene, according to the sheriff of Barrow County. And we've learned just the community of Winder, how it is coming together to help those who are trying to just process this unmeasurable loss that they are having right now. The United Methodist Church here in Winder is going to hold a prayer vigil and also opening up the church doors for those to come in and just to help process their grief.
Yeah, the school also offering the grief counselors for those who need it throughout this week. And keep in mind, school just started here 3 to 4 weeks ago. And, you know, tonight as people start to digest this across the country, but you have to think about the families here in Barrow County that are trying to understand this, knowing that 2 students and 2 teachers will not be coming home to their loved ones tonight because of the tragedy here today.
And it was an act that was, according to the sheriff and GBI, saying that the shooter was a 14-year-old student here at Apprehended High School. So this is someone that many of these students and the faculty knew, and that is even harder to process. No stranger here. We're going to go back to you, Tracy and Carly, inside the studio. We're going to continue. There's still a lot of parents out here. There's still tons of cars trying to be reunited with their families. So it's like a traffic jam out here, for lack of better words. This is a very active scene for both law enforcement and for families trying to reunify with their loved ones.
And Sean and Blair, certainly a lot of those families and you at home trying to garner more information. We did get some from that press conference, mainly about the suspect. A lot of people wanted to know that. The shooter, 14-year-old Colt Gray, a student at Apprehended High School, will be charged with murder, will be tried as an adult. What we did not learn, Carly, is the weapon, what kind of weapon it was and how it made its way into that school. We do want to check in with Atlanta News First investigative reporter Sierra Cummings in studio right now. And there are a lot of these instances on school campuses across Georgia.
Yeah, we've been tracking the data. The numbers would disturb any parent. We learned that 14-year-old shooter, suspected shooter, was a student at the high school. Like you said, while we don't know what type of gun police say he had, we do know that the state of Georgia, the Department of Education, tracks all reported weapons incidents across campuses, including gun-related cases. I want to show you some of the numbers based on 2023 confiscations. According to that state data, 193 times a student was disciplined for having a handgun on campus. There were 79 times a student was disciplined for having another type of firearm on campus, like a shotgun, and a total of 18 students in trouble last year for having a rifle last year. We know when the guns are confiscated, that discipline includes suspension, expulsion, and even arrests. But interestingly enough, we found there were 0 incidents related to Barrow County school system last year. As we've mentioned, we know that the county code of conduct says schools may use weapons detection systems, but our colleague Adam Murphy on site said a student confirmed to him they didn't have any on that campus. We are working to confirm that with the district.
Sierra, thank you. And we do anticipate another press briefing, they indicated, in a couple of hours to maybe get some of those answers. And Sierra, talking about those incidents on campus involving guns here in Georgia, I remember two here in Metro Atlanta in recent history at McEachern High School, at Benjamin E. Mays High School that we reported on as well, just in the last year. So again, the tone of this, the details that we are receiving, all too familiar here in the state of Georgia overall, and specifically here in Metro Atlanta. Now, we do want to give a quick recap of what we have learned, because we learned a lot of information in this latest press briefing. We're taking a live look right now. You can see there are still several cars there on campus, but several more. We saw the football stadium. Several students had already filed out and left to be either getting on the bus or reunited with their parents. All of this unfolding, the GBI says, just before 10:30 this morning. It was 2 school resource officers that ultimately confronted the 14-year-old suspect, who has been identified as Colt Gray. We are told he will be charged with murder. He will be charged as an adult. And right now, the GBI tells us they are still at that school collecting evidence, because, Tracy, this is now a crime scene, and we know they're going to be closed for the rest of the week. No indication beyond that yet. And it just really stuck with me, the Barrow County Sheriff saying, I never imagined, I wrote that down right here, I never imagined he went to the school system himself, his children going to this school system. And I know that hits home for a lot of people in that community, but also beyond. Anyone who is a parent, anyone who has a loved one, a child in school, knows that this is never the type of thing they want to hear. And this is never the type of thing that we want to report on.
And it just hits home for so many people because it's now happening in their backyard. And there in Barrow County, again, as Carly, you mentioned, schools will be closed for the rest of the week. The offices will be open, so they will be open for grief counseling for anyone there in the Barrow community. If you are part of that community or in the outlying community and you need help trying to cope with this, there will be grief counselors on hand to help you do that. And certainly there across that school district, across the county, so many are coming together and really trying to be part of that community and wrap their arms around them. There will be a community event coming up tonight at 7 o'clock at a Jug Tavern, so the entire community can come together. Well, right now, Atlanta News First continues.
You're watching Atlanta's only locally owned station. Live at 5 starts now on Atlanta.
Okay, alrighty. So they say in a couple hours they would have another update. Maybe we'll know more, hopefully. Now, this is another update that I have. This is on a missing couple that went missing on August, what was a Thursday? That would be August 24th? No, excuse me, August 28th. Yeah, August 28th. That they were reported on Thursday, the 29th of August, that they were missing. So, so we have the update, and just let me go ahead and pull this up here. All right, where's my window? Okay, here we are. Okay. All right. Now, on Sunday, during the fourth day of the intense search, investigators found additional remains. This is a timeline of the case. Stephanie Menard, 73, and her husband, Daniel, 79, were last seen at 10 a.m. on Saturday in Redlands, California. I'm sorry. They were reported missing on Sunday when they failed to show up for church. Their dog, Cuddles, a white Shih Tzu, also vanished. The couple's car was found unlocked with the keys inside near their property. Their phones and Stephanie's purse were still inside their home. Police bulldozed a neighbor's house after getting a tip that made him a person of interest. On Thursday night, the Menard's neighbor, Michael Sparks, 62, was arrested. Police believe Stephanie and Daniel are dead and their bodies are inside Sparks' home. People close to the couple claim they were being harassed and feared for their safety due to a potential lawsuit they had a role in regarding the Olive Del Ranch, a nudist resort. On one neighbor in the community claimed Sparks hated the couple. On Friday, human remains were found under Sparks' home. More remains were found on Sunday. And I have the press conference that was held yesterday. Let's see here. Actually, this is where the house is being bulldozed. Let's see here. Hold on a second. Let me just go ahead and play on this. Okay, why am I not hearing anything? My volume's up. Okay. Evidently there isn't. Alright. So I'm just good. Okay. Something just popped up. Alright. So and I had it in here. That's what I did. Oh, here we are. Okay, so here is the press conference that was held yesterday.
In addition to factors in aggravation, my understanding is that due to some court process, he will be arraigned in person tomorrow. I want to say that from the beginning of this case, what we were impressed by were the community members, the friends and loved ones who were so concerned about the Menards that came forward to indicate that things weren't right. From there, obviously, Redlands Police Department took over, did a phenomenal investigation in terms of determining the status of the Menards and then focusing in on a suspect and doing an investigation that was rather significant starting last Thursday all the way through the weekend that led up to where we're at today. I know our Victim Services Bureau has already begun to reach out to the next of kin to the Menards to let them aware of the process. In terms of what's going forward, is obviously going to be very difficult, not only on the family members, but on the community where the Menards lived. We know that obviously is a factor for those individuals. I do want to thank Chief Tolber from Redlands Police Department and their entire investigative team for the work that they did. A very unusual case. They worked very quickly under conditions that were, in my opinion, unprecedented to be able to bring some humanity to the Menards, and obviously at this stage in filing charges, pursuit of justice on our behalf. I also want to thank one of my colleagues, Supervising Deputy District Attorney Lisa Crane, who was present just over to my right, who was out there throughout the weekend being able to assist in terms of what this case was going to turn into and understanding where this case was going to go, ultimately giving us an opportunity when it came in after a holiday weekend to be able to make what, in our opinion, is the right factual and legal decisions in terms of the filing and going forward from there. So, Lisa, thank you very much. And as it relates to the rest of the investigation, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Tolber to fill you in. And then if there's any questions in regards to the process or filing, I'm happy to answer those when the press conference is over. So, Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Tolber. I'm the Chief of Police at Redlands, California. And I'd like to start by extending our condolences to the family and friends of the victims. We're mourning with the community over the homicides of Dan and Stephanie Menard. As you all know from the information that's already been provided, this case began a little more than a week ago when Dan and Stephanie Menard were reported missing on August 25th from their residence at Olivedale Ranch in Ritchie Canyon. Redlands Police immediately followed up on the missing persons report with an extensive search of the hills and canyon area around the ranch. During the follow-up investigation, RPD teams returned to Olivedale Ranch on Thursday, August the 29th to conduct additional investigation and to talk to the Menards neighbors once again. It was while our teams were on site that the police dispatchers received information from an individual identified as a family member, indicating that the suspect, Michael Sparks, was involved in the disappearance and had admitted to killing 2 people and was threatening suicide. Redlands Police immediately locked down the property and began the search for Sparks, narrowing the search down to his home, which happens to be next door to the Menards. Because we had information leading us to believe that Sparks was potentially armed and barricaded, we called in additional assets to ensure the safety of our officers as well as the public. Following long hours and multiple efforts to contact Sparks with no response, we obtained a search warrant and used a drone to first enter the property. That search was unsuccessful, and believing that Sparks and possibly the Menards were still on the property, we used a TAC cat to breach the property and continued to search using remote cameras for safety reasons. Eventually, search teams located Sparks in the subterranean basement. He was in fact armed with a rifle, which he attempted to fire in an effort to harm himself, and the weapon misfired, and Sparks was subsequently taken into custody. Over the next 4 days, law enforcement teams have searched the suspect's property, ultimately locating the remains of 2 people who we believe to be Dan and Stephanie Menard, along with other evidence. The search of the property was completed yesterday. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the men and the women of Redlands Police Department who did an incredible job from the initial search for Dan and Stephanie Menard to the successful completion of the investigation. I'd also like to thank our partners from other agencies who worked alongside Redlands PD, including CAL FIRE, the American Medical Response, and I'd like to thank the Redlands Fire Department who provided personnel trained in confined space operations that made it possible to enter the subterranean space and recover victims along with other evidence. I also want to thank various city crews who assisted, from the wastewater crew who used their specialized equipment to provide us with a look into the crime scene, and the city building engineer who evaluated the structure to ensure that it was safe to enter. I also want to thank our law enforcement partners from both the Riverside County Sheriff's Department and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the California Highway Patrol, the San Bernardino County Coroner's Office, and of course, the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office. And I would also like to thank those members of the media who've assisted us in keeping the public informed throughout this investigation as it progressed. Thank you for your time.
At this time, if anybody has any additional questions, they will be vetted to the appropriate personnel. Go ahead, Rob.
I have a question perhaps for the police chief. Do you know if the coroner has positively identified the remains yet? And is there any possibility that the human remains are of, in addition to Dan and Stephanie, potentially other people?
I do not know at this time if the coroner has positively identified the remains. I would have to defer that question to them. And at this time, I don't have any reason to believe that there are other remains, but again, I would have to defer that question to them.
On that, is there any reason to believe there could be other victims?
I have no reason to believe that at this time.
Were the bodies fully intact, or could you talk about condition of the bodies?
As this is an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to speak to the condition of the bodies at this time.
Were there any weapons that were found in that basement?
Again, based on the fact that this is an ongoing investigation, I'm not going to comment on that at this time.
Do we have any idea, has he said anything, or do you guys have any idea of what exactly happened? Like, were they killed immediately on Saturday, or do we know how long they've been down there? I'm just looking for...
So again, as I've said previously, this is an ongoing investigation, so I can't comment on that at this point in time.
Yeah, but you said it for other questions, so...
Sorry, certainly, and I'm happy to answer in that manner, but it is still ongoing, an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going to comment on that at this point in time.
Okay, well, maybe this is a better question for the DA then. Why would you guys give this special circumstance then if we don't have any information on exactly what happened?
Well, we know they're dead, and we know there's 2 victims. And so the special allegation that we filed is multiple victims in a murder case. Every murder case is serious, but we've always felt that under certain circumstances, and certainly in this instance, where the indication is you find 2 people under the home of the suspect, that is appropriate for multiple victims in terms of special circumstance. I mean, you know, we have a saying, and I don't say it lightly, but I want to say it clearly, is that you don't get a free murder. And in this case, that we believe that we can go forward and prove that Mr. Sparks is responsible for both. So that's why the special allegation there. It's sort of aside from the questions you were asking earlier in terms of why and how. We do know we have 2 dead folks. So that's why the allegation is there.
Can you, as much as you can, describe that subterranean area, and if you can reveal, you know, where the bodies were? And was that area newly built?
I don't believe it was newly built. It's essentially what you have is sort of a homemade basement type area underneath a structure. So in some regards, perhaps unusual, but in other regards, that wouldn't necessarily be unusual. It's the person's parcel, and they can do what they want with it. But that was what was underneath, and I believe that was the concern about anything structurally that might have happened. You know, who knows how well it was built, but that was the condition that law enforcement met when they started to find the bodies.
Has Michael Sparks been cooperative in the investigation?
I'm not going to comment on anything that he may or may not have done. They made an arrest on Thursday, and we're proceeding with the charges.
When you first spoke, as you opened this news conference, you described this as a very unusual case. What makes you say that?
Because you have a community that, for all intents and purposes that we've seen throughout the week, is a very tight-knit community. Obviously, people were very concerned about the Menards. There's been vigils that have been held there. But when you look at the circumstances of an elderly couple who it clearly was a sign of trouble that they were not where they were expected to be by their loved ones on the Sunday, and then you find their remains underneath a house in the same community, double murder of elderly people by a 62-year-old defendant, that's pretty unique.
How long do you think they have been there for?
I do not know. I think obviously when the coroner and the pathology is done, there'll be a better idea of what we're talking about in terms of time frame. But again, for our purposes, in terms of understanding that they've both been killed, that's what is most relevant to us in terms of the charges.
Could you say that this was premeditated?
Would not be able to say that at all, no.
We haven't seen the complaint, but I'm sort of wondering if some of the neighbors, I guess, said that there was tension between them and someone.
Grand Canyon University, an affordable private Christian university, is one of the largest universities in the country, offering more than 270 programs online. In addition to federal grants and aid, GCU's online students received nearly $140 million in institutional scholarships in 2023. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer to see the scholarships you may qualify for.
Pop quiz. StockX is all about the...
Do you have any further information on that?
I do not have any further information on that. I don't know if that's something the chief wishes to speak to. Nothing in the complaint. Our complaint contains the two substantive charges, count 1, count 2, the special allegation in terms of multiple murder, and then as required by law in California, we also add factors in aggravation that we think are present that we would have to prove at a later stage. We don't get into the whole... your question is a good one, but we're not required to do that in terms of the process, and that's probably not even something I think that we would comment on at this point.
To the same point, you know, we're still investigating that to be able to answer that question for you. So at this point, we're not going to be able to comment further on that.
So at this point, you don't know anything about the relationship, and also you don't know what the motive was.
Correct. So I know that they were neighbors, but I can't speak to the motive at this point.
Well, Chief, this is your community. I mean, you guys worked so hard on this. I was out there, you know, and I know that from Sunday to Thursday. Is there anything that you wish to say to the people of Redlands about how seriously you took this, or any thoughts on these sort of heinous allegations?
Oh, absolutely. Like I started with condolences to the family, but also a big thanks to echo Mr. Anderson's
Comments on our community that stepped up, that reached out, that communicated with us.
throughout the investigation. We took it very seriously, as you know from being out there and knowing that we were out there continually from Thursday on. Like I say, I'm very thankful for all of the partners, including our community, that came together to be able to see the investigation through to fruition.
Have you seen anything like this before, or do you have any thoughts on this?
Certainly, it is a... I'm not sure that I've ever seen this type of case. It is certainly concerning, and I'm thankful for my partners here who spent the weekend with us, sorting through the case and through the investigation, that they'll be able to bring some justice for the Menards.
Just to clarify, so he had texted his own family members, correct? That he was going to commit suicide, or possibly commit suicide?
Somebody who identified themselves as a family member, yes, he had reached out to them with that information.
I believe that there may have been other people that were texted, but the initial call that started our focus on him was from a family.
Is there any reason why his vehicle was found? Why the vehicle was found? Like, had the Menards been driving it at all? I mean, that's just a weird piece of the puzzle where it's just found abandoned a half mile down the road. Do we know why the keys were still in the ignition? Were they trying to get away, maybe?
I don't have the answer to that right now.
Chief, there is also a missing dog. Is there evidence of the car where...
Sorry, there's two questions that were asked.
Sir, go ahead.
you asked about the update on the dog. At this time, we have no further information on the whereabouts of the dog, no.
Is there evidence of the car, where the car was found, the foul play, blood, or anything like that? They've been killed there?
No, there's not.
All
right, that's going to be the conclusion of our press conference today, you guys. Thank you so much for attending. I am going to be releasing the complaint shortly thereafter, as well as the court case number and follow up on arraignment dates. So thank you so much for your time today.
Is there a Spanish speaker for Telemundo?
I can arrange that for you if you just want to hang out for a minute. Thank you.
Go to arraignment tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's our understanding, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, in person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you guys,
No offense.
All right, okay, that's on that. I have some more that I can show you, but right now I've got to go ahead and restart the stream. So just give me a few minutes and I'll be right back. And if you are just tuning in, you can actually watch from the beginning and get everything. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. If you like this video, please hit the like button. That way it increases the algorithm so I can get more views. And you can follow me over on Facebook at facebook.com/SYM Radio. Also, you can follow our other Facebook pages, The Missing and Abducted, and Recent News and Alerts Help Bring the Missing Home. That's all on Facebook. And it is spelled the way it sounds. So I will see you in a few minutes.